first of all, just good morning, everyone. Welcome to this month's Business Swansea Enterprise Club session, and we're focusing on hiring staff and recruitment best practice. So as you start or grow your business, or if you're advising employers or businesses, it is a common requirement a lot of the time to employ additional staff. So getting your recruitment right in the first instance can save a lot of time and a lot of money and provide real tangible benefits to your businesses. So before we start, can I remind you that this session is recorded? So if you prefer for your face not to be shown, just turn off your camera by clicking the camcorder icon at the top of your screen. This session will also be uploaded onto our YouTube channel. Firstly, I'd like everyone to introduce themselves, and I need to start from myself, so I always forget to do this. My name's Stephen Williams. I'm from Business Swansea and Swansea Council, and we provide business support to not only startups but also established businesses. Business Swansea has been going since March last year, and I think we're probably on about our 7th or 8th session such as this, which is which is obviously going well. So thanks so much for joining. So Lynn Richards is on the call. So Lynn, can you do a quick intro, please?
Yes, certainly. So I work for Swansea Council as an employer liaison officer. My job basically is getting unemployed people, economically inactive or short-term unemployed, into work. It's by visiting outreach, by dealing with employers, arranging interviews for participants to employers, and just generally doing a support network for the journey for the participant from being unemployed into employment.
Excellent. Actually, my old job this is so. This could be a great benefit, Lynn, because you're really at the cold face with employers and businesses, so you can actually take on board what we learned today and actually pass that knowledge on to employers about their recruitment practice, and hopefully you'll pick up some tips as well when you're sort of recruiting vacancies for them. So
yes, exactly.
Yeah, so it's really good to have you on board here. We've also got Sibu on the call. Sibu, how are you?
I'm good, thank you very much, Stephen. My name is Sibu Susiwe. I'm the director for Live Well Healthcare. We're a new domiciliary care service in Swansea. I am responsible for recruiting myself and my registered manager, but he couldn't be here today. So whatever I'm going to learn today, I'm going to pass it on to him. So thank you.
Oh, that's great. Thanks for joining, Sibu. And we all appreciate that. I think especially in the care sector, it's extremely challenging and competitive recruitment environment in that sector, of course. So I think hopefully you'll get a sort of leg up on the on your competition by joining today. So thanks.
Yeah,
and
thank you.
And a quick intro from you, Suzanne.
Hi, morning everybody. My name is Suzanne Cullen, Managing Director for Evolved HR. I've been in HR for too many years now, but no, 30 odd years, gosh, right? And I've been self-employed for the last 6 years, and I'm really enjoying it. And thank you for Stephen for inviting me to do this with you guys today.
Excellent. Okay, so the purpose of these sessions are really to cover all the essential topics relevant to starting a business or even advising a business. So we've engaged with the local business community who supply us with a different business expert every month. And of course, we've got Suzanne with us. As she said, she's got 30+ years HR experience and is a member of the CIPD, which I was once as well, Suzanne, would you believe?
Yeah.
So, but I think they kicked me out, I think. So,
oh,
it's
no.
good to see you still in there. But I'm sure we're going to benefit from her knowledge and experience around recruitment today. So, Suzanne, I'm going to hand it over to you and take your presentation away, please.
Okay. Hi, guys. Thank you again. So we're going to go through the recruitment basics. As you can well imagine, as you've been in recruitment, a 1-hour session won't cover everything, but we're going to do some top lines. So I'll put a bit of music in as well to try and make it a bit of fun. So I hope you're ready. Here we go. Sorry. Okay, I put that in because as a support for a lot of small businesses, that the amount of problems they've had with recruitment, which we're going to go and cover. So I always get a laugh from that one. So a few recruitment comments, again, from my own direct clients have been, here we go. You might realise I'm a great HR, but tech savvy. Right, it's my mate's son. That might sound familiar to you. He was desperate for a job. She said she could. The references were good. The best of all the applicants, there weren't many. Does that all sound familiar? So if you think about some of the recruitment errors that we've done, just little watch outs. So recruitment, what we're going to cover today, where it starts, what are my options, how, where to advertise, the selection process and the offer. Just to say that we'll be stopping at the offer because then we'll be going into contract law, which is a little bit different. So where it starts. Now, I always advise my clients it should start not at the advert, but really your business planning. So again, so many errors are made in recruitment because they just believe they need someone, but they don't know why. So taking on an employee and retaining them is not as easy as it's made to look. Considerations. So what area needs support? What specifically do you need support with? And that's where you work with, well, you look at either you're a single person in terms of your business or a team. Where's the gaps? Where do you need help? Where are your own shortfalls? So, for example, with myself, because I deliver a lot of the HR strategic level, I need support with administration and background work. Do you need full-time or part-time? So again, it's a case of what could you afford? Is the role full-time? Is it job share? Do you have a budget? So again, if you're in a large organization, there's a preset budget. If you're a small business, is the money in the pot? How are you going to continue to pay the wages if the work is not available? What will their job role be? Will it overlap with anyone else in the business? Again, part of the planning is to ensure that when you look at a new recruit, you don't just look at the role you're recruiting for, but also maybe the roles of others. Again, it might be a case of, can somebody else take on a different part in the business, grow their role, while somebody else comes in and picks up part of the person who's progressing? Now, is it salary or hourly? And again, that's an employment law, HMRC conversation. It's an interesting one because hourly, obviously you pay per hour worked. Salary, you have very many connotations in that with a salary, unless you can justify why you've not paid someone their salary, then everybody should receive the same salary every month for 12 months a year. And what are the PAYE implications? I think what a lot of employers sometimes forget is that there is a tax, NI implications, stakeholder pensions, holidays. So there's all the unseen costs to consider as well. And again, is it a temporary or a permanent role? It doesn't have to be a permanent role. It could be temporary, but we'll come on to that. Where will they be based? And again, what equipment will they need? So some people don't have home PCs or laptops. Some people don't want to use their personal PCs or their phones. Have you got office space? Again, it's all these to consider. There are more considerations, of course, and each business is unique and will identify different needs and challenges. So again, every business is different. There is no standard guide for a business. So what are your options? As I said earlier, the permanent member of staff may not be the most obvious solution. Options can include permanent, full or part-time, fixed term. So let's say, for example, from a council perspective, or the healthcare, you've won a contract that might be a 2-year contract or a 12-month contract or a 6-month contract. Again, you can take somebody on specifically for that term. 0 hours. 0 hours is very handy if you have a flexible workflow. But again, there are quite a few legal loopholes and areas to watch out for with 0. So if you do take on 0, where we get to the end, there'll be some references. So just make sure you check out the rules and procedures on 0 hours. Seasonal contracts. Again, think of your holiday resorts. Again, they want to pick up people for the key holiday areas. And again, there's going to be continuity of employment. So again, it's based on business needs. Agency, sometimes just to test the waters. If you don't know what you need, it might be worth paying that bit more and having an agency worker come on board temporarily. Contractor, freelance, consultant, yes, they do of course cost more, but what you do get from that level is a higher level of experience, exposure, and limited impact on your own personal business costs. An apprentice, it might be that you have the opportunity and there is funding available and you fall into the appropriate category. Family, yes, you can take on family. I normally say, oh, don't take on family. But again, sometimes it's part of the parcel. Just make sure if you take family on that they have the same terms and conditions as any other person. Don't think because they're family that they won't need the same terms and conditions or they'll all work out. Protect your business. Always have a contract for everybody. Young workers, interesting. In some business areas, you can take on some people as young as 13. But again, there are a lot of restrictions. Seek advice. That's what I say. And again, I'm not going to go into depth on every single one. As I've said, there are so many different rules and procedures. So recruitment, an overview. As I've said, employment law is very broad and various laws are applied based on how you recruit. So what we're going to do today is base this presentation on a standard job search engine. So we're going to focus on, let's say, a permanent employee, full or part-time, through something like, let's say, Indeed. There are, of course, other recruitment sites out there. So the job advert. So remember, the advert is your opportunity to sell your business to prospective candidates and employees. So whatever you put out there, just remember you're selling yourself and your business and the job, and you want people to apply. So in the advert, you'll be honest. Again, how many times have you listened to candidates, recruitment centres, and they've said to you, well, they've promised me this, but I had this. And that happens far too often. And then basically you've wasted your time recruiting. So that's time and money. So be honest. The job is the job. Share your personality and your business culture. It's very important that whoever's applying understands the company culture, the personality traits within the business. So, is it go-getting? Is it very highly social media led? Or is it administration, Excel, document led? Again, different people want different things from different jobs. Be specific on skills and experience. So if you need a certain qualification, so in my case, I am MCIPD, but again, if I'm recruiting for somebody in my team, unless they are going to be at the same level myself and give advice as I would, I might say, I don't need the CIPD. I might need a working towards, I might need a good knowledge of English, maths. You know, again, you've got to have to think, what do you need and why do you need it? Do you look at the plumbing world? Absolutely. Gas safe, you need skills, experiences. So again, that's a very important area. Don't ask for something you don't need, because again, invariably, depending on what you need and why you need it, based on skill sets and experiences, people will want more money, and ultimately, if the role is less than they expected, they may not be motivated and could leave your business. Keep it simple but informative. Again, you've only got that moment in time to capture the interest of your candidate. Make it punchy, you know, make it stick out and say, do you know what? Why do you want to work for me? And this is why. Think about the type of person. Now, when I say type of person, we're going to move on to a few of the laws later. However, don't think about age. Don't think about male or female. Absolute no-nos. Think about somebody who might be social media savvy, somebody who likes to engage with the public. Again, if you look at somebody who works from home, is on the phone all day in a call center, maybe they don't need to engage with the public face-to-face, but they might be great verbally on the telephone. A lot of people don't actually like face-to-face interaction. So again, does the role suit the person? Think about relevant platforms for advertising. I've mentioned, for example, Indeed, and again, there are so many others. We'll touch on them. And consider those that view the advert may also be your customers. That's very important as well. You may lose a good customer via a poor advert or a poor experience. Again, would you like to have lines going the wrong way because someone hasn't done their job very well, or would you want someone fitting into the culture? So the effective advert, bear with me, I'm going to have a little bit of a drink, sorry. Add some structure. So while I was saying make it punchy, make it simple to read, understand and apply. That's basically what candidates want. An appealing job title. So let's think, it'd be great to have this wonderful title that makes someone sound important, but who's going to search for an organizational expert with a background in? So what would you search for? Think about that. Think about the search terms that you may use yourself when you look for a particular role. A short business introduction. Maybe your company's unknown. I mean, for example, if you look at my business, how many people know what Evolved HR is and what they do? So I'd give a very, very brief introduction about what the business is, just to give people an idea. Again, are you a startup? Are you established? Are you a large employer? Just give a bit of background, because again, a lot of people want to work for a large employer, or they want to work for a startup because they feel they can make a difference and they can make an impact. Again, it's all down to what that person and what you're looking for. Accountabilities and responsibilities. I see so many job descriptions where, accountabilities and responsibilities, where they have put the full job description in, and it gets to the point where some people think, well, I can't do this and I can't do that, and what will they expect? Add between 3 to 7 main core tasks. Too much and candidates may lose interest. Person spec, very important. Skills, qualifications, essential or preferred. We touched on this earlier. Would you prefer that they had something, or is it essential? So we talked about plumbing, gas safe, qualifications. Attributes. So we talked about maybe because the role is very specifically, I'm going to concentrate on the plumbing one, for example. Let's say it's traveling across the UK. That is the role. Then the attributes will be, they have to be flexible to be able to stay away from home. Personality, again, we touched on that in terms of culture fit to your business. So you might want to say, you know, part of the personality is that you're outgoing, gregarious, you like attending meetings, you like to be outspoken. So again, be specific. There's nothing wrong in being specific as long as you're not breaching any laws. And again, driving license. If you want someone to drive, then it's critical they have a driving license. Rewards. Again, normally brought up as part of the planning process where you're looking at your costs. So salary, what are your key benefits? Is there a vehicle? Are the hours flexible? And again, as I said, generally agreed at the planning stage. Are you in a position to be competitive? So again, dependent on the type of employer you are, how large you are, if you start up, you may not be competitive. But what you can offer is maybe a more relaxed way of working, not so strict, flexible working. Again, you know, part of what I do is I'll work an evening if I have to be somewhere in the daytime personally, and I can offer any candidates that I work that as well. So I can say flexible hours as long as you work 15 hours a week, providing you're there for the core areas, you answer calls. Again, if somebody wants to write a policy in an evening, I'm absolutely fine with that, and that works for me. Again, you might have a role where you have to work 9 till 5. You have to be present. Again, it's based on business need. Location, office, home, travel, remote. Again, all quite critical. With obviously COVID and the different ways of working, so many more of us now working from home. You may not have an office. You may not have office space. You may not have desk space. The role may require travel. So again, you might say 50-50 travel. You again say overnights. Be as descriptive, because what you don't want to do is open a roll up, have some great candidates and find they can't drive. So just be specific. Next steps, very important. I see this as being missed out on so many adverts. How to apply. Do you want a CV or not? Is there an online application process? Is there a link to your own website where they apply on your own website? Do you want a cover letter? Is there a multiple stage interview? So there might be a 3-stage interview process. Be specific, tell people. When I recruit for candidate for myself, I am very specific. I say detail a CV with a cover letter outlining what you can bring to my business and what makes this job ideal. If I don't get that, that tells me that person hasn't read it and hasn't paid attention to detail. Again, it's all part of the process. So bear with me. So the definitely do not do's. Okay, so just be aware of discrimination when wording your advert. It can be a minefield. So just stay away from these areas. So just to remember, what a lot of people don't realise is the employment law starts at the advert stage. It starts here and now. Sex discrimination, age, race, marital, gender, sexual, pregnancy, religion, belief, political, disability. At this point, if your advert mentions age specific, we need a young worker, then already you are discriminating against people who feel that they're not young. So do watch out, because at this point, you can have claims made against you. It's quite rare. It is very rare, I'll be honest with you, but it is a definite watch out. So just make sure your advert does not contain anything that you could be challenged upon. There are reference guides, again, which I'll give you some links for this later. So don't worry, you're not going to go, oh my gosh. So where to advertise? There is so many ways to advertise these days. So again, much of this comes down to your budget, your audience, being careful not to discriminate again, and method of application or interview. Some of the most known or common is websites, as Indeed, Monster, Total Jobs. I think going back probably even 15 years ago, probably Monster and Total Jobs were the biggies out there. Now they seem to have taken a back seat. Indeed's quite a big one. LinkedIn has grown massively. Facebook recruitment, social media sites, Instagram, Twitter. If you think about who now accesses social media, that has been such a proven way to recruit. But again, it's learning how to, and is that the right method for your business? Does it set the right culture? Local radio can be expensive, but again, target audiences. Do you want to hit people in the daytime if they're listening, or the evenings, or when they're traveling to work, traveling back from work? Again, if you think about how the world has changed, not that many people compared to 3 years ago are in the car every day. Media sites, again, newspapers are dependent on your age profile. I remember going to the Evening Post on a Thursday, and there the jobs were, or a Wednesday. But again, that was a way. It still is relevant, but now it's online. Your own website. So you might want, if you're a big company, let's say, let's just do Tesco's, for example, or Sainsbury's, or retailer, not to be, let's be fair to them all. They may have their own website. They won't advertise anywhere else, but if people want a job, it's got careers, and off they go. Government websites. So if you think about people who are looking for jobs, through the job centre, career options, job fairs, again, they're starting to pick back up again, but job fairs are a great way to recruit, again, dependent on the profile. So again, think about your audience, think about where and how, and your budget. These are all options that you could have. Again, I have been using Indeed, LinkedIn, and Facebook. However, some of my clients I've advised to use Instagram and Twitter because, again, based on the type of business that they are. It is very interesting. It's about a thought. It's part of your planning process again. So a lot of this will come down to your planning. The selection process. I believe in getting it right first time. This is one of my mantras, that it's such an expensive task or hobby or whatever you want to call it to recruit. If you recruit the wrong person, again, you're wasting your time, the individual's time, and there's the risk of damage to your business. So let's say we've gone on your Google website and you've gone onto Indeed and you have one role, 10 applications. Sifting. So in planning the role, you identify the business skills, which we've already covered. The skills test. So again, if you use Indeed, for example, I'll use that specifically, you have the option of adding in specific tests, e.g. Excel or communication skills. It gives you a broad range of areas. So providing it's relevant, make sure it's relevant to the job. It pre-sifts for you. So your sifting is made easier. So you can set parameters, you can set, is it essential or is it required? That's stage 1 done. So your 10 might come down to 8. When declining, so do read the CVs and identify, have they applied correctly? Have they put the cover letter in? Have they read the job description? Okay, so to me, it's very important based on the job role. So I'm going to use myself, for example. If I am looking for a candidate, it's very important that applicants read the job description, because a lot of what we do is about detail, reading, policy, writing. So to me, that's critical. Have they applied correctly? And just remember, as I've said, as soon as you advertise the role, you are open to scrutiny. When declining, ensure you make notes of who applied and why they were declined. So going back to the Indeed, I have the option of filling in decline and why. And I always make sure I put in my notes why I'm declining. It might be, again, sorry. It may be they didn't provide a cover letter. It may be I've had many CVs where they've copied and pasted jobs from different companies. So I've had the same details in about 3 different companies they worked for. I'll make a note of that. To me, that has not been, that's not attention to detail. And I'll put those notes in there. Based on the medium used to advertise, subsystems will store your feedback. The reason why I am saying to you, make sure you make notes. So if you do a paper-based application, make notes. Every candidate has the right to request and receive feedback. As soon as you start collating data, think of GDPR, your CVs, then you are open to scrutiny. I'm sure you've all heard this one. Fail to prepare and prepare to fail. How you prepare the candidate and yourself for the selection process is how your candidate will perceive the business and how you operate. Again, reflect back on some of your own experiences where you've had a great interview and maybe not so great an interview, and think, how do you then think about that business, how the employment relationship would work, and how that works with you going forward. What's your perception? Do you think to yourself, oh, that's not that great, but I can improve it, or it's not that great, my employment won't be that great? Critical things, ensure you have a location. If you do not have an office, consider a hotel lobby, a quiet cafe, Zoom, Teams call. Remember, your candidate is sharing personal information. So it's very important you have an area that is quiet and is confidential. Again, I'm sure you are aware of situations and areas where car park conversations, let's say Costa, Costa is so busy, or Starbucks, it's so noisy and you lose half the conversation. Allow enough time per candidate. Remember, the person you're getting to know will be representing your business. 45 to 60 minutes is generally a reasonable amount of time. I've said this to some of my clients and they say, well, I can't afford that much time. The backfire is you can't afford not to give them that much time. Again, it goes back to whoever you take on will be representing your business. Ensure you invite your candidates with plenty of notice. Don't say, come in tomorrow. Again, oh, I can't. Well, we're not going to take you on. Where you can, always provide notice. I would say 4 to 5 days. Sometimes people can be flexible, but again, they may not be at their best if they come in the next day. They may need to book time off, arrange childcare. They might be on holidays. Consider out-of-hour interviews if required. Outline the dress code for the interview and ensure you dress as requested. So again, consider the change of how people dress from where they did 20 years ago. Prior, you would always, wear a suit to an interview. These days, a lot of people, no matter what age range they are, will wear trainers. If you don't want that, be specific. Or that person will dress how they feel comfortable. Prepare your questions in advance. Very important. This is one of probably the most critical things that you can do is in the preparing, fail, prepare, prepare to fail, is get your questions ready. Consider what you need to learn about the candidate's skills, experience, personality, salary expectations, and so on. There are so many things to think about. It is suggested that you use an interview template to ensure all candidates are asked the same core set of questions and for you to capture notes. It is very important that you ask all candidates the same top line questions, as from a discrimination perspective or feedback, you would need to demonstrate, if challenged, that every person had the same opportunity. Where the questions go after the core question, because again, if you're aware of the probing side, what they respond with will lead on to different questions. Those could be unpredictable. The interview. Be prepared, as I've said, and again, I cannot stress this enough. Welcome the candidate. Ask a few gentle questions to help them feel at ease. You know, what you would do normally when you have a meeting. How was your journey? Again, if you're having a cup of coffee, ask them if they want a cup of coffee or tea. If you're in a hotel, again, be courteous. Would they like a drink? Don't go down the food path, as again, it's disruptive. Your mouth's full when you're talking. So again, always offer a drink if you're having one. Think about maybe in this context, their age or their exposure to interviews in the past. It might be the first interview they've ever had. So think about how to relax them. They might be an experienced, time-served interviewee. So again, let's just talk about maybe the weather, their travel, holidays, or anything that you feel would build a rapport between you. Apologies. Consider the questions within your pre-prepared forms. I know I'm repeating, but it is so important. And where possible, most of us now have Word access. We have a printer, or we have iPads where we can take notes on the pads. Just be prepared, and you know that you've got your questions ready. Again, from a question type, this is another session in itself. However, this is top line, closed questions. If you think about the yes or no, how many times have you asked a question expecting a detailed response and you've got a yes or no? Think of the yes or no game, which I try and think of when I think of questions. What do I want to conclude? Do I want to confirm, just to confirm that your travel time to work is half an hour? Yes. So only use it where you want to confirm or close down that line of questioning, because it's so easy to ask closed questions because it's habit forming. Open questions are the best questions that you can ask. How, who, what, why. So how did you get here today? Based on the how, that person has to give you a response. Yeah. Who did you report to in your last role? What was your role? What did you do? Why did you apply today? Yeah, again, think of what you want to ask. And when you prepare, think about the how, the who, the what, the why, the where, the when, and the do you, and talk me through. Again, I will give you references in terms of you can access this information. Generic. So generic questions are good, and it'll help you build a further picture of the candidate. A few examples could include, how will they see themselves? So do you want someone long term? Do you want a career options? How will they see themselves in 5 years, 2 years? How do others see them? What do they enjoy about work? Positive things. What don't they enjoy about work? What motivates them? What research have they done about your business and fitting in? What do they do for personal development and relaxation? So again, reflecting back on my own needs, I generally ask, so how do you ensure that your employment law knowledge is up to date? And what do you do to relax at the end of the day? Normally, I say a glass of wine. Keep questions relevant to the job. That again is very critical. It's so easy to go off on a tangent and digress because you've heard something that's, oh, that's really interesting, and you can easily go off onto a sideline. To keep the questions relevant, it might be at the end of the interview, you may have time to discuss something that they've said in more detail. Very important. Ask candidates if they need any adjustments or have any specific access requirements to attend an interview. This is forgotten too much. So as part of the process, just remember, put it in your advert even to say, if you need any adjustments, please make us aware. The pitfalls, again, I'm coming back to these again, but very, very critical. Be aware of potential pitfalls. Don't ask about marital status. Don't ask about children. Sexual orientation. Again, apparently, there's 57 types of orientation. It's just baffling, but again, you can't assume. You just really have to be very specific, and everyone's an individual. Social life. While you think, oh, well, social life, we try and stay clear of social life, because if someone says to you, oh, yes, I go out every Friday, Saturday and Sunday, you might be thinking, oh my gosh, Monday mornings, they won't come in. That's an assumption. And it's too easy to make assumptions, so be very careful. Unnecessary questions about religion or belief. Again, if you think about the need to pray, or that if you think of Ireland and in terms of the religion side there are so many things that from a religion and belief perspective that needs to be considered but not asked. Again, if somebody needs support, needs time, they will put that to you. Age, massive. Age, unless relevant as a young worker, health and safety, insurance or driving. So again, it's been a very interesting journey on the age one, where I've been supporting companies that age is not just about young workers, it's about those who are highly experienced. As I had a company once who were targeting young workers with harder objectives than more mature workers. And when I asked why, they said, oh, well, because they're of this age and they're not capable. Well, surely that's discriminatory. So at the end of the day, if someone is doing a role, they get paid the same, irrespective of their age, they do the same job and they're measured the same. Okay, oh, we've jumped on this one, bear with me, can I go back? Oh, okay, we'll go on to this. So common weaknesses of interviews. You probably will read ahead, but I'll go through them anyway. Self-fulfilling prophecy effect. Interviewers may ask questions designed to confirm initial impression of candidates gained either before the interview or in its early stages. How easy is it to look at a name and do a Facebook search, a social media search, and make assumptions based on what you see? Be careful. So again, what you're trying to do is ask questions just to confirm what you believe. Interviewers can assume that particular characteristics are typical of members of a particular group. This is done far too often. In the case of sex, race, disability, marital, or ex-offenders, decisions made on this basis are often illegal. However, the effect occurs in the case of all kinds of social groups. How often do we are guilty of stereotyping in general day-to-day life? So again, be wary. One cap doesn't fit all, not everyone's the same. The halo and horns effect, always quite an interesting one. Once the interviewers rate the candidate as good or bad in their aspects, they often replicate this judgment across the board, reaching an unbalanced decision. It's far too easy to make assumptions. We are human. We have our own minds. You know, how we think, what we do. What we have to do is to be careful that we treat everybody with respect and dignity and as an individual. So just be wary of that one as well. The contrast effect. Interviewers can allow the experience of interviewing one candidate to affect the way they interview others who are seen later in the selection process. Again, yes, part of the application process and the interview is to compare candidates, but not on personality, not on style, based on what they say, how they say it, and that is why it's critical to ask the same questions. The similar to me effect. Interviewers sometimes give preference to candidates they perceive as having a similar background, career history, personality, or attitudes to themselves. Again, this is quite historical and it still happens today. And sometimes it happens without even realizing, because you build an affinity with that person at the interview and you think, oh, they're a really good person, because it's a bit like a mirror effect. What you have to think about is why you're taking that person on. What do they need to do? Can they do that job? And that's what's important. Personal liking effect. Interviewers may make decisions on the basis of whether they personally like or dislike the candidate. There used to be this saying years ago, or probably still is there now today. As soon as that person walks in the door, you know they're going to fit your business. That's a huge no-no. How do you justify that? You know, even in life, even in your social groups, even you can go out and you can meet someone and have an instant non-rapport with them. Be wary in the world of recruitment, because that is not positive and that could be a downfall. Interview the people, interview the candidates for the role they've applied for, based against a set of criteria and the job description. So I have taken that from Anderson and Shackleton, and if you want to read more about that, that's a reference for you as well. So a bit about the law. So, and again, it's a top line. I'm not doing in-depth law today. There is no single act governing recruitment and selection. There are many statutes dealing with the employment relationship that have an impact on pre-employment issues. Remember what I said? Scrutiny starts at the advert stage, even before in the planning stage. If you're working with a group of people and you make a comment about age or sex, if somebody in that group takes offence, then again, there could be a complaint, a grievance about you within the business, or potentially even a claim to a tribunal. Sorry. The most significant example is the Equality Act 2010, which makes it unlawful for employers to discriminate against job applicants and existing workers because of one of the protected characteristics. Again, I've repeated this an awful lot within this presentation because it's very important. Age, disability, gender reassignment, race, religion, belief, sex, orientation, marriage, civil, pregnancy, maternity. People say it's a minefield, and it can be. It's very simple. Just make sure everything you do is clear, black and white, and does not mention any of the characteristics. Other relevant statutes include the Employment Rights Act, 1996, Statement of Terms and Conditions, Working Time Regulations, National Minimum Wages Act, Transfer of Undertaking. So again, generally, 2P, as it's called, some of you might have been 2P'd in the past, some of you may be aware of what it is or not what it is. And basically, it's when you take on, or your company engages with another company and you buy another business and you take on the employees that are within that business. That falls under 2P. Data Protection Act, again, GDPR came in as well. Then so I do apologise, it's 1998 there, should be 2016. Governs checks on the right to work in the UK. Absolutely critical. Has that person got the right to work in the UK? Making the offer. Okay, so again, if any of you ever work in a small business, recruitment within a small business can often be very rushed and can often result in the wrong candidate being appointed or process not being applied. Allow yourself at least 24 hours post-interview to consider your candidates. I had, again, I'm going to give you an example here. I had a client say that they're taking technical staff on, and they come in the door and they're great and they go to do a job, and it's awful, and there's been complaints. So I thought, oh, that's interesting. So I sat in on the interview, or a few of the interviews, which was very interesting. So whereby I've said to you about using the what, where, why, and how, and you investigate. It's basically an investigation. You're investigating their experience. This company, they were asking questions. Can you fix a door? Can you repair a drill? Yes. Oh, that's great. You can repair this. Oh, and can you build a kitchen? Yes. The whole interview is based on can you, do you? So that person was saying yes, yes, yes. So they thought they had the most fantastic candidate. So then I then took over the interviews and asked the who, what, why, and where. And unfortunately, quite a lot of the candidates didn't get through because they weren't able to describe their experience in enough detail. So think about how critical that is. So when people say, oh, yes, a 10-minute interview, generally it's not effective. So think about your questions. When you want to make the offer, phone your successful candidate first. They may decline. They had time to think about it. Maybe they felt the culture wasn't right. Maybe they didn't enjoy their experience. And if they decline, ask them why. Get the feedback. And thus, you may have a reserve option. So you might have interviewed 2 or 3 candidates. 2 were very good. 1 was a little bit exceptional. So always, where you can, offer your initial candidate first. Don't be afraid of asking for feedback if they say no. Very important, because likewise they can ask you for feedback. When making the offer, confirm the key terms discussed at the interview. Start date, hours of work, hourly rate or annual salary. Pre or day 1 requirements are things that you'll need before they start. Driving license, the right to work in the UK, personal details. Again, part of what I do now with myself and my clients is I will generally send all offer details in an email within, hopefully, if they've given me enough notice, about a week or 5 days before they start. Sometimes I'll get a call and I'll say, oh, so-and-so starting tomorrow. It's happened, so I just get on top of that. But again, get an email out, get the details out. It's so important that when that person joins you, they have a good experience. If it means they don't get pre-information on the day they start, all their information is there ready for them. DRB requirements, again, if you're working with children or community or vulnerable workers or vulnerable people, so critical. There's a DRB requirements and other. So again, it's really part of making sure that when you make an offer, you state it's subject to, and you could put on there DBS, driving licenses, references. Confirming the offer. Always confirm the offer in writing, outlining the terms of employment. Provide written terms of employment as in the contract. Whereby, and this law changed, you had 8 weeks prior to provide the employee with a contract. It's now on day 1 or before of their start date. A contract of employment is a legally binding agreement between an employer and employee. In the UK, the term employee is defined by the Employment Rights Act. So again, watch out on your laws. As an individual who has entered into a works under the contract of service or an apprenticeship, and they're a mixture of express and implied terms. Think about if you were to buy a car on finance, it's a contract. If you buy a house, you have a contract. Think of this, it's a contract. Protects your business, protects your employer. So if you're a part of a large business, it protects your employer, their livelihood, your livelihood. If you're a small employer, sole trader, it protects your business. A contract of employment is in many respects no different to any other form of contract, as I've said. As such, it's governed by contract law, which means there needs to be an offer of employment by the employer. It should be clear, unambiguous, and it might be conditional. So again, as I said, it might be based on your references, your driving license checks, your right to work, acceptance of that offer by the employee. How are they going to accept? Do they respond? Do they have to accept before the start date? Consideration between the parties. For example, the work done by the employee in return for the wages paid by the employer. Again, it might seem quite simple, but if you say your rate of pay is this, and for that you need to work this, basically that is what the contract confirms. And it's an intention to create a legally binding arrangement. So your contract is law. So whatever you put in that contract becomes legally binding. So if you make a mistake in the contract and you say that you will give that person 12 weeks notice, then you are bound by that. So if, for example, that they didn't achieve the probationary period, you may be bound to pay them 12 weeks notice. So be wary of the wording. Without written terms of employment, the employee can be the most powerful party in the arrangement. This is so true. So again, I've been working with some clients where they've been trading 20 years, never had contracts, but all of a sudden they've had a problem. And because of that problem, the terms that the employee has are far more powerful. How can you demonstrate without a contract that that person doesn't have an inflated salary, doesn't have increased in holidays, doesn't have holidays above and beyond, doesn't have extended notice periods, doesn't have the right to a vehicle? It's really that contract sets out exactly what has to be agreed, and that then is also discussed as part of the recruitment process. Keep records of all documents, very important. Now that is the offer. I'm not going to go into detail on the contract because that moves into employment law, contract law, and again it is another section. Doing the right thing. Our time today has covered the core basics of recruitment. It's far more in depth. However, there are a number of great support tools available for free. So again, I understand support from HR, solicitors, guidance online can be very expensive, fully understandable. There are tools out there which some businesses will use and do use. What I'm saying is just do the right thing, make sure you're happy and comfortable, and if you're not comfortable, then do seek advice off a HR, off a government website, off ACAS. Again, just make sure that your laws, but your business is protected, because in the long run, it could cost you more not to have that initial advice. Employment law, doing the right thing. Do not make assumptions. Should all be considered when recruiting. So again, as I've said to you consistently, do not make assumptions. Be black and white. Keep it clear. So remember to plan. Plan is critical. Cost of recruitment. Again, if you're part of a business, a larger business, the cost is already built in. A percentage is allowed for recruitment, for headcount. Prepare. Again, critical. Preparation. Consider. Take time to consider what you want, why you need it, who the best candidate is and why. Think about how you thought about doing the process. Did you think about that person because you had a great affinity, or because they were the right person for the business? And act. Make sure you act appropriately. Act on all applicants. So again, if you've had 10 applications, respond to all 10 with a yes or no. It's courteous. Again, some systems that you use will automatically respond for you if you decline that person. These are some of the useful contacts. So ACAS, hiring someone, the Equalities Office, recruiting and hiring with the government.uk, preventing discrimination in recruitment, Recruitment and Employment Confederation, and Safer Jobs. Now, I'm unsure, but again, these are links. But if you don't have access to this book, I'm happy to send these links out to you. So, any questions? Question and answer time. So, Stephen, can we go back on to speaker?
Yeah. Thanks, Suzanne. That was really thorough and informative. It's really interesting to see the sort of things that you need to consider, especially if you're doing this for the first time. There's there's a lot of things to think about and obviously implement. I'll kick off with one question, which I want to ask you is about references. Yes. So what you're finding more and more when references is always a good tool to use to get a bit of background on someone's performance in work. And when I used to work in NHS, we used to have to send out 2 references for each person, asking all sorts of questions, including sickness absence, would you believe? Even back then, okay? But what I want to ask you is, do you need to be mindful of references? For example, references being true and accurate by the employer, but also are you finding it's becoming more and more difficult to extract a reference from a company under GDPR rules when generally I think a large majority of companies will just send a statement of employment, just dates and job title. I think that's pretty much it. Are you finding that?
100%, Stephen. No, I considered adding references to the presentation, and I hoped it would come up as a question. So I'm glad it has, as it's a very, very difficult one because, as you said, historically, there's been such detailed questions under GDPR, and not just GDPR, under employment law itself, under regulations. Unless the reference provided is factual, accurate, again, the person giving the reference, if they've not been factual, if they can't give their feedback or the reference based on physical, actual evidence, then again, that person or the person who gave the reference can be challenged on, again, any of protected characteristics. And if that person is not offered the role or is basically non-confirmed with a new employer because of something that was said by the previous employer and is unproven, then again, this is the minefield. So what has happened, so many companies have I'll use the term become scared off of giving references. And in all fairness, if you think of who provides references, it's generally an administrator in many cases. And that administrator, if they will base it on maybe and often, if you think about the risks of their assumptions sometimes, and that has been the historical impact. So when I work with my clients, I do say, if a reference is requested, then provide core basics. Yes, they're employed from this date to this date. And if additional questions are requested, you have to think why. And if it's not relevant, so let's say, for example, if it's relevant. So if someone's going to work with children or in security or the police, then yes, it is very specific. There has to be certain data. So when you provide references, again, if somebody has been managed for performance and there is evidence that they have been disciplined for performance, that is evidence. So you can put that, they have been managed for poor performance and they were issued with a warning. That is fact. Although if it had expired, so if it's more than 12 months old, again, it's not relevant, has to be removed. And this is where some of the downfalls are. If, for example, and I have had this, and I've had to deal with some of these areas, that there was a brown paper envelope agreement for that person to leave because they were not performing, but there's no evidence. I've had a situation where there's been a claim against a business because they put down that that person was not performing, but there was no evidence. So that is the watch out. So only provide details and references that are factual. If you're not clear, if you're not sure, either seek advice or provide your core basics. If the new employer needs more, they will come back to you and ask them why they want the information.
There you are. So that's good for the guys on the call.
Quite a long-winded response, sorry.
Yeah, that's good for the guys on the call, because you could, if you're recruiting staff or you're advising about recruitment, it's not just a case of actually requesting the references. You may well get references requested from yourself, so you've got to be mindful of these things, especially Cebu. I mean, the care does tend to have a relatively high turnover of staff, so it could be a situation that you sort of are faced with at some point in the near future. Just one other question from me, so I'll let the other guys chip in if they got anything.
Yeah, thank you so much, Stephen. Thank you, Suzanne, for that comprehensive presentation. I'm echoing what Stephen is saying about the references, because I requested a reference recently and all I got was the dates when they started working with them and when they finished, and also there was the safeguarding bit, like they haven't had any safeguarding issues, which was really good in care, especially because you're working with vulnerable individuals. So we would need to know if there's any safeguarding issues previously, but there wasn't anything. I had questions on there about obviously their sickness and other bits. I wasn't able to get that information due to GDP. So yeah, it's quite tricky now nowadays to kind of really get that background information which you require for you to be set, and that they are good, they are punctual, they can perform, there are no competence issues. It's very difficult. And I heard something like as well, an employer is not allowed to give an employee a bad reference. I don't know how far true that is.
Right.
If it's a myth, or I'm not sure, but
no, it goes. Sorry, Sibu, I do apologise for interrupting you. It goes back to what I was saying to Stephen earlier. Employers cannot give a bad reference unless it's true and it's proven and factual. So unless, for example, I use the management performance side, if somebody has been disciplined for misconduct or performance and the incident is live when they leave, so let's say, for example, let's say I was given a warning, I'll use myself, and it's a 12-month lifespan on the warning. I leave the business after 6 months, so that warning is still live on my file. 2 years down the line, then I apply for a role and a reference request is asked for, and let's say it's a role that requires specific information. So if a role is dependent on a thorough, detailed reference, and there's normally a link, for the police, for example. I'll use the police because it's quite black and white, that one. The disclaimer would say that please respond. These responders are critical to the ongoing employment. Without these, we might have to say we can't employ this person. There'll be something in there to say something like that. And at that point, if there is a question about misconduct or challenging my work behaviours, even though the 12 months has expired on the warning, because when I left it was at 6 months and it's factual, it's needed from a disclaimer from the police, then it can be provided. What you can't do is say, oh yes, well they had a warning but it expired. That's a bad reference. You can't say, oh, but they were always late. If you never track the lateness and you never manage them for the lateness. So unless you can demonstrate specifically you've tracked the lateness, you've issued them a warning for lateness, you cannot use what you don't have. So you just have to basically say, oh, I know this is black and white about this person. That's all I can say. So it's not a myth, but it is a myth. Does that make sense? So you can't give a bad reference. And what employers are now doing in the majority of cases, if they weren't happy with the employee, they didn't manage them well, they don't want to recommend them for another job, so all they do is they just won't provide a reference. So you're probably finding that you're sending reference requests out and you hardly get any back. Do you find that? Do you find you don't get that many back?
Yes, I've had quite a few, which I haven't had any responses, and I've followed up, but nobody's even acknowledging receipt of the reference or nothing, so they just went quiet.
Yes, so a part of, because of the change in laws and employers' risk, so they're concerned about the risk of providing a reference because they've heard the myths. They've heard the stories, and unfortunately, humans, we make assumptions, they assume the worst. So they will not respond. So again, it's time consuming to chase. You know, so again, what you have to think about is a disclaimer. So we say to the future employee or the employee you've taken on to say your employment is subject to, and you will say to the new employee, right, we need these references. You know, so I will send out the reference request. You will need to prompt your ex-employer to complete them, or you have to say, I will have to make a decision on your employment if I do not get your references. Again, that's broad. There's wording appropriate to that. You build a probationary period into their contract. So you then have like a 6-month window to gain the references, to monitor their work performance. So if you do not get the references, you have a 6-month window. So again, I always believe in putting some of the responsibility back on the employee to chase the reference as well.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Suzanne.
No problem.
I got another quick question. You probably find a lot more businesses are using social media. I think you alluded to it to do a bit of reconnaissance, should we call it, on potential applicants or interviewees, especially if they've got sort of open social media accounts, for example, which can be just accessed. Do you think this is good practice, or do you think it's a bit unethical?
It technically is unethical. So it's what everyone does. Oh, look, I've got their name. Let me do a little bit of research on them. It's habit. It's what we do as human beings. But if we go back to part of the presentation, absolutely, because what social media can do is basically put a false image in your head, and then you go into that interview with a false perception of that person. You know, that person might be the most professional person. You know, they're very structured, they're organized, but when they go out, they let their hair down. You know, they're a bit of a boy, a bit of a girl. But again, your perception created is, oh gosh, they're a socialite. But really, in a work mode, they are very professional. And so the risk is we all make assumptions. We can make assumptions from social media. So the recommendation is not to review social media, even though many companies recommend it as a recruitment tool. I know. So if you do browse their history, it should be out of interest as in maybe a talking point for a conversation, what's your hobbies and interests, not a basis of forming an opinion about that person. That again is dangerous. So if you think about an interview process, you decline that person because you believe, let's do the typical Monday morning thing, they're not coming into work because they drank too much the night before. You're making an assumption that that's going to happen, and you can't demonstrate that. You believe that. So again, that's a protected characteristic and an assumption.
Okay.
It's a watch out.
Yeah,
it's a watch out.
Yeah, certainly is.
That's an easier said than done, isn't it?
Oh, and people do. And the thing is, people do it, and sometimes people do it unintentionally. So it's really, if you're aware it's a watch out, then you'll be sure that if you do observe it, then you make a mental note. Maybe part of the conversation is when you talk about what to do to relax is, oh, do you know what? I like to go out and have a bit of a laugh with my friends, and we post lots of pictures because we're quite, a gregarious group. However, the interview itself should demonstrate that person is fully competent, the skills and the experience. That's why the structured interview process and the correct questions are very important.
Great. Okay, Suzanne, that's great. Any other questions, Sibu, before we wrap it up?
No questions at the moment. Just to say thank you to Suzanne. It's been really helpful.
Absolutely, no problem. And Lynn, from yourself at all?
She's had some internet problems, so she's had to depart the call.
I've got one more slide, sorry.
Oh, right, okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
I was trying, because I was trying to put a bit of music into the presentation.
Thanks, Suzanne. This will be uploaded onto our YouTube channel as well. Okay, so people will see your contact details and the presentation on that format. So thanks very much for today. It's been really good. I was hoping to get a few more people here, but I think they're probably opting to watch it on YouTube probably. So I think that's maybe why they haven't attended.
Again, it's all social media. They can pause, they can fast forward, go backwards. Absolutely.
But but they don't get the benefit of asking the specific questions to the to the expert, which is a shame. But there you are. Anyway, so I put a few links in the chat. So there's one for our Facebook group, Swansea Business Swansea Enterprise Startup Enterprise Club Facebook group. We've already got about 72 members. It's growing all the time. There's a couple of links in there for our newsletters. Keep you updated on our events, funding, our partners support, and general things going on within Swansea. This is quite apt. Our next workshop, which Susan has alluded to really indirectly, is on the 29th of June. We've got Paul Shuttleworth from DJM Solicitors coming in to do employment law essentials. So that's a good follow on from this session. So that'll cover all the legalities, and I'm sure a lot of the acts that Suzanne has posted up in a presentation. So thanks again, everyone, today for attending. Hope you have a lovely day, and hopefully see you soon.